All right, so welcome back into the metaverse today. We're going to be breaking down ApeCoin, the kind of the challenge that they're facing of whether they stay with Ethereum or maybe look for a new home. I'll break all of that for you guys down right here on Metaverse Insider. Welcome back. Let's get into it today, and that is talking about ApeCoin, more in general about Ape as an IP. And when you look at NFT projects that roll out the size of Ape and what's really been put into the marketplace so far. We've seen land sales and a handful of other things, but we haven't really seen anything that affected gas the way that the ApeCoin NFT drop really affected it. When you look at some of the data, let's just kind of take a look at the Ethereum safe flow gas price, not enough. Let's take a look at this over the 30-day, which will show you. As you can notice, this back here, right here on May 11th and 12th, you can kind of start to see all of this happening right around the NFT explosion of the Ape IP. And what that simply means is that Ethereum and the whole idea of gas in general for an IP the size of Ape is huge compared to you look at the rest of the markets. And let me kind of give you an example of it. We'll go to the max on this same chart. Let's see if it paints it out. Right there, you can kind of see some of the initiatives that have happened over the years, all the way up into right here where ApeCoin, of course, and the NFTs exploded onto the scene. So here's the problem. The challenge is going to be this, is that if you've got an IP like ApeCoin and what Yuga Labs is trying to do from a bigger standpoint, and you still have the challenges that are at bay, the question is ETH ever going to be capable of handling a mega IP, something like a Fortnite, or if you go into traditional gaming, who might make the leap, most likely will make the leap and start looking for chains to really kind of jump into. And we've had several interviews on this show over the past few weeks talking about some of these kind of challenges that really are facing the NFT ecosystem, but more importantly, the crypto community as a whole. All right, so when you look at the proposal, the idea is how do we keep Ape secure? And one of the biggest issues, of course, in looking at any of the layer 2s and or other layer 1s is security is going to be the number one issue. And they kind of break it down here. Yuga Labs talking about what they're trying to do, migrating to a different chain, costly, risky, complex endeavor, many moving parts. You can kind of see it there. The rationale, though, is pretty straightforward. What they're trying to do is they don't want to increase gas costs, obvious. Migrating away from Ethereum would find its home on a different chain than the original aspirate was aspired to do. So this may have unintended downstream effects, such as Yuga Labs no longer supporting or using ApeCoin in association with NFTs. That's a problem. And then right here, Ethereum and its respective L2s remain the largest collected ecosystem of NFTs, builders, etc., and one of the most secure. So this is the challenge that many people are looking at as to why ETH is still going to win this out. Now, my argument is still going to be that maybe ETH isn't even big enough for this in essence of where it is today and what we've seen so far, as opposed to, now, could it be for the kinds of NFT projects that we've continued to see drop on it? Sure, many of those are going to be fine for the most part, but we haven't seen a Titan really make its way in here. And if you look at what Avalanche was trying to talk to on this very, very issue, here's the idea for Otherside as an Avalanche subnet. And let me kind of highlight a little bit about what their rationale. So global community, sure, okay. Big community for sure. Avalanche also has proven itself as one of the most adopted, scalable, reliable in layer 1 networks, close to 100% historical uptime. Sub-second finality guarantees the transaction settlement. That's a good thing. Subnets also allowed for unmatched flexibility with gas fees paid in Ape. This would still be good, but the issue that Avalanche and I think Avalabs overall faces is they've never come to the big game before. This would be a monster attempt really on the Avalanche subnet to be able to launch something like this. And I would be curious as to see whether or not they could even test it. Obviously, it's just not a risk that I think Yuga is trying to take on to do. So I think Avalanche is definitely going to be out of the picture here. The other one, of course, is going to be IMX. And IMX is interesting because they have had a successful launch. If you kind of consider it successful, and I'll talk about that here in a minute with what's happening over at Elluvium. But The motivation here is, again, still trying to figure out how and what to do to avoid these gas issues that continue to fly into the face of. Now, Immutable-X, of course, is still one of the cheapest, if not the cheapest, in terms of gas fees. So first liquidity protocol for NFTs. I'll just kind of highlight some of this for you guys. For NFTs, layer 2, empowering next generation, web 3, games and projects, utility NFTs, light game assets, etc. Also, IMX exists to solve problems and allow hundreds of millions of users to on their own assets. Still, we have not seen IMX, again, jump to a massive overload of both demand and delivery in their ecosystem. Now, could it do it? Yes, it's possible. IMX could be kind of the hidden gem here that could really kind of take this on. The problem that I think that we'll continue to face is we won't really know this until we're in a bit of a better market position so that there's more consumer demand for NFTs. We won't really know this until we're in a better market position so that the ETH price and gas may start to help kind of self-modulate itself. But the other aspect that you're going to continue to look at here is just in general, as we continue to see L2s with increased price of gas fees. So here we have as Ethereum's L2 gas fees hit all-time high. Here's why. Here's a little bit of a breakdown. And really, it's kind of getting to the consumption of about 4% of the gas limit. What you see here in the chart, and I'll show you this on Dune, is really just the upward trend. This is the main thing to look at when you break it down, is that as our team was kind of breaking this down, looking at the fact that this should be going down instead of going up. And if you look at just what Dune Analytics is showing here, all the way back into November of 2020, when we absolutely had hardly no layer 2 transactions. And then you come over here into September. Remember, September through December was really the metaverse explosion. So a lot happening within that ecosystem. And then right here we are in the birth of the NFTs, which was really around January, February, which had good growth, but not a lot of partnerships for the layer 2s. And then boom, here you go. Now the layer 2s are starting to integrate, but prices are still going up in terms of gas consumption. So what it simply means is that this may not necessarily be the solution either. So I think the bigger challenge here is going to be how this all starts to roll out. Now, a couple of projects that have recently made the leap and are doing some actual NFT launches is Elluvium. So you can kind of check in on the Elluvium land sale, 12 hours in, 13 million in sales, which is pretty good actually. It's not sold out. They're still going on even as we record this right now. No gas wars and all land was minted on Immutable. That's a good sign for Immutable-X in the sense that Elluvium was able to get their land sale done without any crazy hiccups. But at the same time, I look at the market and I say, all right, we have a down market. Illuvium's priced under 300 bucks. You've got scenarios where there's a lot less demand. And I kind of think it shows, even if you look at just Illuvium's pricing. Let me kind of pull up a chart here real quick on the board. Yeah, so here's a little bit of their land plots that are available. As you can see, not necessarily a big demand for what's happening. Look at the fall off here on just the pricing for the land sale. So again, this gets back to what I think will be a scenario where there just wasn't a tremendous amount of land, even though it was a successful launch for Elluvium. It just did not meet the standards in terms of something like an ApeCoin or a major IP release and what that might look like on Immutable-X. And we still won't know because of the fact that IMX and the markets are still in a suppressed nature. So a lot of this, I think, is really going to kind of play out in the future as we start to see the market kind of correct in. If we extrapolate this sale, valuing primary sales of land at around 400 million USD, this is one of the most successful gaming sales of all time. And the key word here, if you extrapolate, and trying to look at this in other cases of how this may end up growing without actually affecting a real demand layer on Elluvium. Because this could have been a scenario, had this been done on Elluvium, say, in December, this would have been a completely different game. Now, obviously, they weren't ready in December for from a mechanical standpoint of getting just into IMX and making the NFT transactions possible. But I think the point is that you've got the challenge in the industry right now that I think a lot of people, whether you want to face it or not, the fees are real, and we've got to be able to surpass this whole issue for it to become something that we can utilize as a stable technology to move this into the next level. And I think that is going to be the big key here that a lot of companies are going to be watching very closely on the future. Just to give you an example, how to buy land on the Elluvium-X. Now, I want to show you something here that was highlighted. So, NFT playable Elluvium Zero, our mobile desktop companion game, generated fuel required to capture, travel, and battle inside the Elluvium Overlord. Landowners now can earn by playing fun game that rewards them for their time. So this is kind of the proposition that's being put in place. But when you look down here on the how-to step guide, you'll see, here it is, sign into MetaMask, signature request, and then boom, you have to go through MetaMask to make this happen. So you're still faced with gas fees. So this, even though IMX and Immutable have done a great job in terms of the transaction layer, which I think is also needed in the sense that we can't have a lot of errors and a lot of mistakes, and also the problems that many other projects had, including Ape with Dutch auctions and so on. The issue still falls into gas fees. And until this is overcome, and a lot of people will still argue, and it's something we probably should break down, still argue that ETH2 may not necessarily be the future here on where gas fees are going. So I think this is where it layers down. And it looks like when you think about just the IP that is going to be rolling out into the NFT space and the gaming ecosystem in the next few years, let's just say the next year, and the demand that we're going to probably see, which I think will be still limited over the next 12 months, the real tell is going to be on the cycle on the next bull run, because at that point, we're going to see a lot of demand coming in on NFTs, a lot of demand on new industries wanting to utilize NFTs, which we haven't seen in the past. And then a lot of these mature games, they're going to start rolling out on NFTs. Hence, they're going to need the layer ones to essentially assist this whole process. So the big key here is how well these layer ones really develop to initiate, one, the transaction protocols to handle these massive rollouts, or Ethereum in itself figures out a true solution to the gas wars. And I think that's going to be the challenge that we'll continue to face right here. So ApeCoin and all of this is still up in the air as to whether or not this IP can truly make it to the next level, or if we're going to see someone like Nike or, some major brand, a gaming company, some sort of big branding company that jumps into the NFT space or into the gaming space and breaks it all, because of the demand and requirements that would be able to hit it. Could you imagine something like, as I said earlier, Fortnite or Nike or someone major that really jumps into a full-blown NFT? Think about McDonald's Monopoly, just the games themselves, and flipping that into an NFT module. What would that look like? I know that we've seen, a lot of argument around Wax. We've seen a lot of argument around other platforms overall that could potentially handle these kinds of NFTs, but gaming ecosystems a little bit different. We'll see how all this breaks down. The key here is going to be the technology is still very new, and we are in the infancy of where the growth may be going. All right, so if you guys are listening in over on the podcast right now, make sure and tune in here to the YouTube channel. This is where we break down a lot of our different analysis and some of our really kind of our stories, where we put together kind of these narratives of how the market is trending. And also we'll drop in occasionally some sentiment data that'll help you guys on, thinking about projects, what direction to look for in terms of growth, all that good stuff. Make sure if you want to reach me, it's out on Twitter @Paul Barron. I'll catch you next time right here on Metaverse Insider.